Hey y'all, I'm Benjamin, and I am going to talk about agricultural runoff, specifically fertilizers today, and how that affects all of us. So I had like this cooler video planned out in my head, but like I'm just a DIY type of guy, so maybe if I can get some pictures here, then that would be dope, and I can help explain things better. But if not, y'all are just going to have to watch my hands, and I'll try to act things out for you because that's how I do. So, agricultural runoff. Agricultural runoff is going to be like byproducts from farms and from farmers. And so that's going to be like fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, cow manure, just like anything that can like run off from their property into the streams and rivers. And so this is going to be really problematic in areas that are like especially the water. Just like if it's going to be easier for these things to get into the water, then this is going to be a big problem, obviously. So the thing that I really wanted to get into today was fertilizers, especially manure. So manure is a great fertilizer. It has all the nutrients that the plants need, like pre-packaged up into like a nice little package, and that they're able to take this like byproduct from the cows essentially, and then put it back into the soil because the plants are going to be able to fix the carbon with their roots. So the problem really happens when the fertilizers end up in the waterways instead of on the fields, and this can happen for a number of reasons. It can be because of misigation practices, like if they're watering too much and so there's just a bunch of runoff. It can happen if the wrong areas are fertilized. Any of these things can really like increase, it actually increases the fertility of the stream initially, but because of eutrophication, which is this process that the stream gets all these nutrients, and the plant growth and the algae just like take off, and they are just growing wild and having a great time. But as with everything in the earth, they have to die, and so they eventually die, and then as they're decomposing, the organisms that eat them take up a lot of oxygen, like the bacteria and stuff take up a lot of oxygen, and so they are removing oxygen from the water, which means that the fish that are living in the water and the other aquatic creatures just don't get as much air, and so they start dying. They can't breathe, and they start dying, and then they start decomposing, and it just adds on to each other like one after another. And so it means that like the fertility eventually goes way down in the stream, and then other measures have to be taken to get that back up. One of the best things that we can do is take a proactive approach to prevent these fertilizers and manure from ever getting into the stream. And there are a bunch of systems, mostly physical, that we can put into place. Swales are a great one. Hedgerows. The EPA actually has a guidebook called National Management Measures for the Control of Non-Point Pollution. So it's like, I'm not the first one to look at this, guys. It's already out there. And they talk about wetlands, channel vegetation, floodwater diversion, critical area planning, nutrient management, prescribed grazing, sediment basins, and improving irrigation systems. And so that's really going to be a focus on what we can do to prevent it. And a lot of those are plants, and plants not only help to like slow down the flow of water, but can also make the soil more porous and can allow for more moisture to be pulled into the water instead of just like running over it. Structures, and so like the sediment basin is going to have like all this water like run into this basin, and then it's just going to like settle out, and through that way then like the fertilizers and the manure and the other things are going to be pulled more into the ground so that the plants can start to break down those things and like really absorb those things, as well as like cleaning the water simultaneously and helping the overall health of the environment, the specific environment that they are living in. Are best used together if you stack them, and that really helps to grow the effect that they have. And so instead of just using like plants to slow the water, then you have like the swales to slow the water and the plants to really pull it into the ground. Working specifically with cows is important too. If you can try to keep the cattle in a space that is for them and a certain like distance, or like with like geographic barriers between them and the water, then that can allow for the water to be redirected into areas where like runoff isn't going to be as harmful for that environment, or actually be super beneficial, like the sediment basins. So wetlands are a great system that can be applied, and wetlands will allow for the vegetation and for the other aquatic creatures to really break down the things in the water, and so you have more time that they are processing it instead of it just being like swept down. And so they can still like have negative effects from like the eutrophication, stuff like that, but you can also set them up so that they are able to absorb more of that and to use that better and use that more efficiently in their systems. So a lot of them will use the plants and bacteria and fungi as biofilters, and so this means that they are filtering the water for you. You don't have to have a system that is breaking it down, like a water filtration system or a water purification system, because these plants and these fungi and these bacteria already want to do it for you. And there are certain species that do really well, and there are certain species that don't do as well, depending on the region, depending on the pollutants, and so all of these things need to be taken into consideration. So when you're thinking about like putting in an installation like this, which I mean you don't even have to apply like a full wetland, if you have a river or a stream on your property and you want to help to like filter the river, the stream, then planting plants on the side of the river can actually be super beneficial. There are things that you want to keep in mind, like what is already living there, what is going to be the impact of these plants. And so that's going to be cost of time, cost of money, cost of energy, and like, yeah, what is the cost to you? And do you want to set up a system that you have to like constantly be investing in and constantly be funneling more money in so that you can keep it clean and like functional? Or do you want to try to install a system of plants that you can just plant and you never have to pay attention again? And so when you're doing this, you do want to pay a lot of attention to the flora and fauna that is already in the area. You don't want to displace them. You don't want to put in any invasive plants into the area. And so like be asking yourself those questions. How are the plants that I'm going to be putting here going to affect this area in 5 years, in 10 years, in 50 years? And like Is this going to help the area eventually, or like ultimately, or is this going to hurt the area ultimately? We also have the problem of like repairing the damage that we caused. So thinking long term is super important with these things. Making sure that your plan is not like super rigid, that it allows for some flow, because these things do change throughout the year, even throughout our lives, definitely. But making sure that the plan has some flow, has some leeway, and then that way you can like really build on top of that. You can continue to build with that flexibility in mind, so that you're allowing what wants to happen naturally, because that's going to be so much easier for you, as well as what you want to ultimately happen. And so like working together with those two streams of thoughts is going to be really powerful. So irrigation management allows farmers to save money and time through watering in more specified ways, so that they aren't losing the fertilizers or other amendments that they already put on the soil, and also so that they're saving money on and time in the water that they're putting on their fields. They're not losing as much. The water that they're using is staying where they want it, and so those like really water loving crops are receiving that water. The water isn't just like running off into the stream, polluting the stream. So it's a win-win for sure for everybody. So what can we do? If you have a local farmer, talk to them about the runoff and about like what their measures that they already have in place are, like what they want to do and what they can do once you find out what they are already doing. If you buy more commercially from a more industrial farm, I guess, then you can send letters and talk about how you want these practices in place and how this is important to you. This is something that saves time and money, so it is benefiting them in the long run, even if it is like an initial like little bit more effort to get that started. And another thing that we can all do is talk to legislators, talk to the lawmakers, see what we can get passed to help to protect our streams and our rivers, see if we can divert any funding to help farmers build these systems so that they can save money in the long run, as well as saving us, the taxpayers, money for not having to do cleanup systems and cleanup projects and clean up, so that they just stay more naturally crystal clear. Working together, we can make a difference. We can create cleaner streams, cleaner rivers, cleaner lakes and oceans, and really get them back to the pristine states that they were in, that our great-great-grandparents knew. And we can only do it with you, baby. So let's get it done. Maybe education. You know? Stay educated.